I'll call the December meeting to order. As the Board of Commissioners, I'm sure everyone here knows I'm not a commissioner. Simply the attorney, and I preside for about 30 seconds each year. The first order of business would be the invocation, and Commissioner Gibbs, please do that.
If you would bow your head, please. Dear Father God, we thank you, Lord, for being with us tonight. We thank you for the many blessings that you give us each and every day. We thank you for a beautiful day today. Lord, we thank you for good activity that goes on within this county each and every day. We ask that you be with us as we make decisions for Stockton County, for the betterment of all the citizens of Stockton County. In your name we pray, Lord. Amen.
Please join us in the pledge of allegiance. Pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before we do the reorganization of the board, I'd like to welcome everyone here, including, I saw at least one city council member in that, and also Dennis is on the agenda. Senator Purcell as well. I'm sorry. I couldn't, the librarian was between me and you, and I didn't see you, Senator Purcell. I can remember a meeting with City Council when you welcomed me as county attorney. Attorneys are not always welcome the way you did that. I appreciate that always. The board itself statutorily is required to reorganize itself each December. And the first order of business would be the election of the chair of the Board of Commissioners for this coming year. I will open the floor for nominations for that position.
Mr. Johnston, I'd like to nominate Bob Davis for the position of chairman of the Board of Stockton County Board of Commissioners.
Mr. Davis's name has been placed in nomination. Are there any other nominations for chair? There being none, do I hear a motion that the nomination be closed and that Mr. Davis be elected by acclamation?
So moved.
Have a motion and a second. There being no discussion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The next order of business is the election of vice chair of the board for the coming year. We're opening the floor for nominations for vice chair.
I nominate Carol.
Ms. McCall. Ms. McCall has been nominated for the position of vice chair. Are there other nominations? There being none, do I hear a motion that the nominations be closed and Ms. McCall be elected by acclamation?
So moved.
Been moved and seconded that the Ms. McCall be elected by acclamation. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Congratulations.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson, and thank the board for their confidence and faith in me for another year. I appreciate it very, very much. And I would like to echo Mr. Johnson's welcome to Mary Adams and also Senator Purcell. Glad to work with you as well as the other districts that are here. Glad to have each one of you here. Appreciate it. We'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved. I would like to make a motion to approve the agenda with the amendment of moving number 5, solar electrical grid upgrade by Mr. Brian Bednar up to following number 2, the Laurel Hill Community Center discussion.
Have a motion to approve the agenda, except to move number 5 up to number 3. Have a second. Have a second. Discussion. All in favor, let us know by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. All right. speak, Ms. Diana Johnson.
Good evening. My name is Diana Johnston. I live at 13421 Wesleyan Drive in Laurinburg. I'm a member of the Scotland County Board of Elections, and I speak briefly tonight in support of the Board of Elections' request to the Board of Commissioners, which comes up on item number 6 of the consent agenda. Even though you are all elected officials, the commissioners that is, I seriously doubt that you have an idea of what all goes into the entire election process. The state mandates, the constant changes to the state rules and regulations. Ms. Parker and Ms. Brewer have to constantly keep track of these, even on a daily basis. As you have witnessed with your own elections, there have been no abnormalities. An election is not one day, or even with early voting to canvass, a one-month process. Ms. Parker and Ms. Brewer go above and beyond the parameters of their job descriptions to ensure a safe and secure election process. They are always conscientious, always following legal guidelines, and always with an eagle eye to the budget. If you think that Scotland County has just been lucky not to be in the news with election irregularities, you are wrong. It is because of the care and diligence that these two women put into their work. What happened in the neighboring Robeson County would never have happened here, because they would have seen the red flags with the absentee ballots right as they arrived in their office. You are blessed to have them working for the citizens of Scotland County. I thank you for your time and attention.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that cares to address the board? If not, then I'll close the public forum. I know we have a scout moved in. I'm assuming you're here from Marybad. We're glad to have you. What troop are you with, 420? 420?
Yes, sir.
I'm glad you're here. All right. We're going to move to the assembly member. We're going to do discussion of the law. I'm sorry, we did not vote on the consent agenda.
I move we approve the consent agenda.
I second.
All in favor, you know, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. All right, now we can,
With Laurel Hill, this was added in. Last week, we did advertise that we were having a special meeting today. And the purpose was to go back over, reviewing the Laurel Hill Community Center, as well as some of the other county facilities that were on the capital plan for the next upcoming several years. No decisions were made. This was a review of capital for the facilities and trying to figure out what kind of next steps would be made in developing a plan that would involve the Laurel Hill Community Center, as well as hopefully a broader plan for the community or for the county as a whole. The action that was taken this morning is the board did agree to meet again on January 9th, so they will recess the January regular meeting to the 9th. At 7 o'clock, we will be looking for a location to have that meeting, and as soon as we confirm that, that will be placed. The purpose of this meeting is to gather additional community input on the long-term use of Laurel Hill Community Center, or the long-term needs and requests of the community that can be addressed by the county by a facility. So we are going to be meeting in the Laurel Hill community on January 9th at 7 o'clock. As soon as we confirm a location, that will be advertised as well, and we'll be looking to ask that the community come out and attend so the board can get some direct feedback from the community on what are some of the actual requests. And so a longer vision can be established by the board moving forward.
Anyone else have any comments about what we're talking about today?
I like to say that we all, visited the Laurel Hill centers today, and I think that we gained a lot of insight into the needs of the community, and I'm glad to know that we will be involved in a special meeting on this, what you say, January the 9th,
January 9th.
to really try to draw some plans and see what we can do.
Anything else to say? Well, in addition to that, we have three of our commissioners, John Oliver, Tim Ivey, and Carol McCall, to look at 2 or 3 different building scenarios to get an idea of what they look like and work on the board in the Laurel Hill community. We're going to move ahead with that. And as I said, and Mary Helen, I will put you on the spot, but I will. We have talked about either the Church of the Pines Fellowship Hall or the Methodist Church Fellowship Hall. Those are more visible, and if you could maybe check with your session. See if we can that. 6 to 9 and 7 o'clock if we use your facility for the meeting. Anything else on that? And Mr. Bryan will have you up next.
Jason, would it be possible, I have a very short presentation, is it possible to put that up, or is it too late for that? Yeah, it's in the Scotland County folder. I brought some just hard copies of these materials. There's just more background reading, but don't mind. That's neat. Mr. Chairman, thank you for having me. While he's pulling that up, I'm Brian Bender. I am the founder and president of Bird's Eye Renewable Energy. We're a solar development company based in Charlotte, North Carolina that I'm proud to have been in business. This will be my 10th year, and my first significant project in the state of North Carolina was on Highway 74 here in Laurinburg on Joe Manus' property. And I've been pleased to work with the county numerous times, as you guys are aware. The reason I'm here today was to give an update to Scotland County on the project known as Frisian, which is off of 401 South on the farm owned by Bill Bethea. Phil Cottrell and Harvey Edge are 2 of the parcels that we're working on, formerly Harvey's project. The state of North Carolina is facing a really interesting transition point. We've had a lot of success. Flip to the next slide, I'm sorry. Yeah, just a little bit about Bird's Eye. So Bird's Eye, we've done 43 projects now since the start of project number 1. We're operating across the entire southeast, though North Carolina is our home market. We have 4 projects we've done in Scotland County, Holstein, which is the one out by Campbell Soup, the city of Laurinburg one next to the wastewater treatment plant, the one on Bill Bethea's farm, the first one, as well as the one known as Manus Farm. And then been active around Maxton. If you don't mind flipping them, sorry, I didn't. The project that's known as Frisian is the one that's going to be on Bill Bethea's land on the south part of 401. You guys saw it and approved our rezoning a little over 2 years ago. Like most of this region, there's basically a 15-county region in north and upper part of the PD region in South Carolina. Because of the earlier success of solar, it got to the point where Duke is acknowledging that there is no longer any capacity for interconnection of any kind of generator, whether it be gas plant, like you might have around Hamlet, solar, or any other type of generation investment. Frisian has going through a process where, when we first came to you, we weren't exactly sure who was going to potentially buy the energy from the project. It's now publicly known that North Carolina Electric Membership Corporation is going to be buying all the energy, as well as all the renewable certificates that come from the Frisian project to meet their renewable energy goals and targets that they have as an organization. So we're pleased to have them as a partner. All the agreements are signed. As a part of that process, though, we had to go back before the Utilities Commission and get an updated CPCN, Certificate of Public Convenience and Necessity. And the unique situation that we face now in this region, if you don't mind hitting the slide one more time, this is the area that basically Duke has published as areas that no longer can accept any more renewable energy generation without some upgrades to the system that are pretty significant. And it's cascading. I mean, right now, this is what the most recent map is. We're involved in the western half of the state. Same issues are starting to crop up there now too, right? Where we came from a history where we had nuclear power plants and coal plants that were distributing power out to the the more rural areas and away from the load centers. Now it's going the opposite way. The investment's coming to places like Scotland County, Robeson County, Columbus County, and sending energy to the more densely populated areas of Fayetteville and Raleigh and Charlotte. And what that means is that we've now gotten to the point, starting with this part of the state, because this is the part of the state where it received the most investment initially, that we are finding that the infrastructure has gotten to the point where it no longer can handle any additional injection of power. If you don't mind slipping back one slide forward. This shows you the Frisian project is the first. We've been working on this project since 2016. It is the first large project which is triggering significant upgrades that will benefit the entire 15-county region that we've talked about. And basically what we're going to be doing is we need to rebuild 63 miles of transmission line. There's basically, I showed them on that map there. You can see the red dot that's on the map, which is essentially Frisian project right down on the 401 South by the state line. But the lines that are being triggered for upgrade are basically the lines that are impacted south of Fayetteville, that basically are the bottleneck for this entire region.
Brian, can you pull that mic closer?
Oh, sure, sorry. So my objective for today was just to make sure, two objectives. One is to let the county know what's going on with the project. I always try to do that as we progress. Secondly, ask for support if it's available to reach out to the public staff of the Utilities Commission and explain that it's important for this investment to be available to this part of the state. And then third, just make sure that you guys are well positioned to make good decisions. Well positioned to make good decisions about solar going forward. So the upgrades that are being triggered are $225 million, which is a large number. The project itself will be taking 4 years to construct. So we have funded the initial part of the $225 million. We're going to be crossing the Cape Fear River 4 times. Duke's doing the work. We pay them to do the work. And what will end up happening is that the Frisian project, which is located in the southern part of the county, will be able to connect. But it will also then allow for the potential for more solar investment to come to this region. And why that's important is not because, in my mind, that we're taking away authority from the local government that can control, such as Laurinburg, deciding whether or not they want solar. But I think that option needs to be available to local governments in this part of the state. This part of the state is the best location for solar in the state of North Carolina, and arguably better than anything they have in South Carolina. And that's one of the reasons why you have seen so much solar investment here. More solar investment is coming, though, and I'm going to talk about that in just a moment. I want to make sure you kind of see where we're going. So right now, where we are in our process, on December the 18th, the Utilities Commission is going to consider whether or not to grant this CPCN for the Frisian project and the upgrades. The way the upgrades will work is we have private investors that are going to fund the $225 million, and once the project's operational, they will then have the opportunity they will be reimbursed by Duke in the same way that Duke is reimbursed for any kind of significant upgrades they do to their system, whether they're building a coal plant or a gas plant, whether they're upgrading power lines. But what this is going to do is it's going to put on a timetable that will be will preserve the ability for this part of the state to actually interconnect any additional solar in the next 4 to 6 years. It's been a 6-year planning process. We're now 2 years in. We're at the point where we have to get our last approval, and we've run into this situation where the public staff has made some decisions where they're saying that we're not 100% sure that these kinds of investments are prudent. And that is partly because we've never faced anything where there had to be these kinds of investments, because we've reached the tipping point statewide where large improvements to the infrastructure are going to be required in order to meet some of the goals that are laid out ahead. So if you don't mind, can you flip ahead? So this again is the map published by Duke where they have told the industry and investors where they cannot invest at present. The next shows, this is we just learned it's a slightly outdated map. But this essentially shows the projects that are proposed in this general region, all of which are on hold, and all of which are behind the Frisian project. So the Frisian project is number 1 in the DEP, Duke Energy Progress, eastern half of North Carolina cube. So it is essentially the tipping point where these upgrades are going to be needed, and this is the next project that funds it. 4 projects behind us are 2 gas-fired plants that Duke's proposing, which would trigger some of the same upgrades as well. So presumably, once they reach the point where they would be available to be constructed, they would potentially make these upgrades. So we believe that they are going to be needed no matter what. But for the moment, this is the first project that would trigger it. If you don't mind, one more time. Again, this is sort of summarizing where the projects that are lined up in the state are. So right now, they're in this region of the state of North Carolina. There's about 1,574 megawatts. To give some scale, the project that we're proposing down on 401 South is 70 megawatts. So we're talking 20 of those projects is the total projects that are currently proposed in this region. And this number is a little outdated. We've learned that actually in the last couple months, there's been several projects that have been withdrawn from this region, and particularly Scotland County, just because there hasn't been a path for there to be these upgrades constructed that need to be done. There are 2 big things to think about. The governor has put forward his Executive Order 80, which is essentially an energy efficiency and decarbonization plan for the state of North Carolina. And Duke Energy itself has put forward its own plan for decarbonization of the state of North Carolina. Both of them have a target of 2030. The Duke plan is a 50% decarbonization by 2030. The governor's plan is a 70% plan. In both cases, significant amounts of solar are going to be required. Right now, North Carolina has about 3,500 megawatts of solar that is either operating or about to be operating. In order to meet the governor's objective, Duke has told us that it will require an additional 5,100 megawatts of solar investment between now and 2030. So my bigger point from a policy idea is if we have the most attractive location for solar investment, being the 15 county region surrounding Scotland County, and we're going to need 5,100 megawatts of additional investment by 2030 to meet the governor's goal. Duke's goal would be a 3,000. So we're still talking about almost doubling the amount of solar that's going to be in the ground, and these upgrades will be triggered here first, but elsewhere as well. It seems that it could be a bad policy decision to prevent this project from going forward, and therefore basically limiting the ability for any investment to come to this region, which I would argue is the best place for it. And still leave the local government, county, city, the ability to use their entitlement processes to make sure it's well-sited, well-buffered, well-screened. We want to bring this investment to this region. If we want to go to the next slide, please. So this just gives you a sense of the scale of the Frisian project. So the Frisian project is roughly going to be about an $80 million investment in the county. Our projection, now this number, it's not going to be operational until the end of 2023. And that's because Duke's upgrades, the 63 miles of line, which have already, the design process is already underway. We funded that already. Basically, it's going to take until the end of 2023 to finish those upgrades. But at that point, we're expecting somewhere around $80 million of investment, $160,000 year one of tax revenue to the county. The second bullet, I apologize it's in here, we were updating, but since we prepared this slide, the new queue's been issued. There was an additional 210 megawatts beyond our project that were in Scotland County. And at this point, all of them have been withdrawn. So they are no longer in the queue. And presumably, I think part of the issue has been is that we don't have, there has not been a mechanism. They're not probably aware that we're going to potentially make these upgrades, but folks can't absorb those upgrades. The last piece I would just throw out there is that there's 5,100 megawatts under the governor's plan that needs to be done by 2030. If you just use some, round numbers, assuming that it's going to be, prices will continue to climb, we're talking about $4 billion of investment in the state of North Carolina. $8 million of property taxes. It just strikes me as a situation where it would be unfortunate if this region did not get to, continue to be a leader in this space. Again, prudently deployed, put in the right spots, etc. But I think in the end, if we don't have that choice, then, or if you don't have the upgrades made here now, there's a 4 to 6 year lead time. The odds of Scotland County or Robeson County or Hope County getting much of this investment, Richmond County, is going to be very limited. And we have an active, experienced solar construction base here that's been working on projects. But if you talk, there's not much of that work at this point at all. And it's pretty much moved away. This part of the state just doesn't have any opportunities. If the commission, there's two goals as I mentioned. One would be if the commission felt that it would be willing to do so, I would love for the commission to file a comment in support. Understanding that that may or may not be something that you're willing to do, I still want you to know that this is a big deal for this part of the state. And I'm proud to have done a lot of work in this county. I look forward to doing it as well and working through this, but it is a pretty big threat to the future of investment in solar in this area. So with that, I'll pause and see if anyone has any questions. I appreciate you hearing me out.
Any questions, Brian? You made a comment about this being an ideal spot, Scotland County. What makes it unique for solar?
So,
Opposed to some other counties in Mecklenburg or Anson, Michigan?
no, that's really a great question. So why have we come here? Well, first of all, this part of the state has the highest concentration and density of energy from the sun. It's well known, for years and years we've had weather data that's been tracked by the National Weather Service. Initially it wasn't designed to be used for solar, but now we know, we have a history. And we know where the best solar resource is, and this part of the state has the highest solar resource. There's an element of the fact that the land is flat, it's easy to construct. We have traditionally had good infrastructure here, but we've used up what was available. And so at this point, it's now come down to where can you find open land? Where is it? The solar production at its highest point. Where can we find the labor to do it? In the end, cost of land is important, but it's more binary than that. It's like you're not going to find 10, 20, 30 acres of available land in Mecklenburg County, Wake County, Guilford County. I mean, it is a competitive advantage as part of the state. Now, does that mean you need to have it on every corner? I don't think that's where we're headed at all. But if it's well sited, which I mean, we worked hard with staff and come up with a good plan for Frisian that the neighbors seemed supportive of, and we were successful. But the idea is that you have a competitive advantage in this part of the state for solar investment. And the beauty of solar versus some other types of investment is that from a county services point of view, it just doesn't demand much once it's constructed. And so that, in my mind, is an advantage for this type of investment.
I have several questions.
Sure.
What happens if obviously if we support this doesn't mean the Utilities Commission is going to grant the certification.
Absolutely, you're right.
What happens if they don't grant it to Freedom?
So we have two options. So number one option, well, we think that, I didn't go down this path, we think what they're doing is actually not proper. It's the first time they've ever contested this type of CPCN on these grounds, because they've never been faced with it before. So we could litigate, very costly. The issue is that between now and April, we have to post significant deposits. We posted $7 million today on this project with the expectation we're going to work this out with the Utilities Commission. We're really mostly concerned that right now the staff's against. The public staff is the one that's sort of proposing it. They provide their own assessment. Duke is in support of the project. So they have said that to public staff. They have come out with, in our data request, to see that. The second thing that could happen is we have the ability, because this is a FERC, because we're selling power to North Carolina Electric Membership Corporation and not Duke, we have certain rights that are under the federal FERC, Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, so we could suspend the project, which would mean we could hold it kind of in limbo for 3 years while we try to work it out. The problem with that is we lose our schedule, everything has to start over. And yeah.
You're talking about a 15-county area.
That's right.
I would assume that these other counties have the same issue that we would have if the certificate is not granted.
Absolutely. So we have
asked them first.
We have, and so we've been working with Richmond County. We've been talking with, and I think this week we had to have these testimony that I provided you was filed last week, and we've been focused on, and with obviously the holiday weekend, Thanksgiving, we're going to be beginning and doing this exact same thing with all of those other counties as well. But I think
limited amount of time to do it.
Limited amount of time, right? I mean, in the end, we think that this is a good policy matter. We look forward to any support we can get, but we do know that this investment is important. We know that they're behind us. There are 3 projects that are absolutely dependent on these same upgrades and aren't in a position where they can fund them. And one of them is in Richmond County, on the border with Montgomery. We've got one in Bladen County and then one in Columbus County. We've spoken to economic development and different representatives in all those places, and they have the same issue. Because, I mean, again, the one thing I should also say, the other third thing we could do is we could withdraw. And what ends up happening in the withdrawal process, this queue that I was mentioning is a serial process. So it goes one to the next, to the next, to the next. It just cascades down, and we're in a unique position because we can sell power to the North Carolina Electric Membership Corporation where we can fund it, Duke can put it in their rate base as part of their normal infrastructure upgrades. Other projects that I've done in the county here wouldn't be eligible for that. So it's a unique situation.
And that may be my last question.
Yes.
In the material that you sent to us for this meeting, there was a comment that there would be a rate increase.
Yes, talk about that. So the public staff has said that they believe that, well, all infrastructure potentially could have a rate increase. This is not like a direct causal situation. But basically they're saying that they think that there could be a rate increase eventually to all of the retail ratepayers. Duke wouldn't reimburse this until 2027 at the earliest. But they said that there could be as much as a 0.5% rate increase. I guess you could call it increase based upon this upgrade. That's not to say that we have studies which I just provided you from our consultants that have looked at the price of solar energy long term is going to actually reduce rates. So those things are going to be working opposite one another. We believe the future in the state is that the least cost solution is going to be renewables, not building additional gas pipelines and building new gas plants. And that's really where that goes. So it kind of cuts both ways. I don't have Duke, we've made a request to on how that math works, but basically what happens is it gets put into their rate base like anything else that they would invest in. It's divided up amongst customers in North Carolina, customers in South Carolina, and then wholesale customers like the EMC. I hope that helps. Yeah. What other questions, Mike?
Any other questions?
Happy you've got our information, happy to answer any other questions anyone might have, but just nice to be in front of y'all. Congratulations on the building.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Be safe going back to shop.
Absolutely. Thank you for working with me on the agenda.
I hope that we can meet as a board and discuss this and see if this is really something we want to go forward with help, because a lot of times I don't understand it. And I like to know what I'm hearing and understanding. And I'm concerned about how many solar farms we'll have in Scotland County as a result of these things. I know a lot of our citizens don't want any more solar farms, but that may not totally relate to what he's saying here. So I got to have some better understanding of it.
I think we can arrange that. Any other comments?
What's the time sensitivity of this? Remind us of that.
Yeah, so the 12th is the final, December the 12th is final
That's
comments,
what I thought.
but there would be, and our hearing's on the 18th, I should have said that.
The hearing's when?
December the 18th,
But you had a comment in before.
yes, please.
Mr. Mayor, has any, I apologize.
Yeah, no, it's okay.
Any other counties responded positively to your request here?
Yes, Richmond, again, you're the first I've gotten in front of, but with the holidays, but Richmond County seems extremely interested. Brian Landover, their county manager, they're very pro-solar as far as where those are located, and we've had favorable response from everyone. We've also talked to folks in Pembroke and throughout Robinson County, because a lot of those folks have been hung up trying to do development for themselves, they can't do it. That's the other thing I didn't mention, is this also impacts the EMCs. So we did a project with Lumbee River, just south of Lumberton, and have another project in St. Paul's that we would like to do with them, but we can't because they're also constrained by what Duke's system does. So even the EMCs or the city of Laurinburg, same issue. If the local utility here would like to provide FCC green energy or do solar for them, they can't do anything right now because the whole system is blocked.
And we're just one piece of the system.
That's right, and unfortunately, the backbone is Duke, and I think Duke understands this has to happen, but there is no other real mechanism for it to be done in a timely fashion because they have to go through long planning processes, et cetera, and this is a way for this to get done for this region.
The only comment I would have is that this isn't just about Scotland County. There's a big forest, and it's not about the trees. I see it, I understand what Betty said, but I think it's about renewable energy and about thinking forward and not staying in the same pattern as what we're doing now.
Well, the transition's coming, right? And I'll just say as an anecdote, as a developer of solar, has been around for a while, we've got a brand enough that we get contacted. I mean, it is becoming a flood of industrial customers, big names from all over North and South Carolina reaching out to say, how do we make this happen? How can we do this? I mean, auto manufacturers in this region, I mean, people like that are trying to find ways to get it. I mean, it's coming, and I would like for that, we have to site it somewhere, and it makes a lot more sense to do it in the right place in Scotland County than it does to do it in Catawba County near Hickory or somewhere, because you just can't effectively do it. We just are getting ready to break ground in 430 acres in Catawba County, which in Catawba County, we're partnered with Duke on that actually, they're our investor. And basically, it's one farm of 1,000 acres in Catawba County. There's like one spot in that whole region that you could potentially do a large project, and I'm not sure you could do another one. So, thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I'd like to have a comment. I know that personally some of us have our biases about the appearance of the county. I have that concern as well, but farmers have a right to farm their land. And I would like to see this board consider that and whatever decision we make, because there's a lot of land that won't produce corn and tobacco and cotton, soybeans. And these folks can't wait 20 years for a tree to get grown. Farmers need to make money annually. We expect to pay taxes on this land, even if it grows nothing but grass and sandspur, we still collect our taxes. And some of this land can be used for solar farms. So I'd like for us to consider the farmer who struggles to have a good year now with weather changing. Solar farms would be a win-win situation for many landowners and farmers.
I think, and I may be wrong, Brian, you correct me if I'm wrong, but I think really what he's discussing tonight is I believe he said 3 that already were approved by either us or by the city. And he can't do anything until Duke does something.
That's correct. And I mean, in Duke's defense, they have a big system. You may recall, they did go through this process to ask for this big grid improvement, right? $12 billion or whatever. Coal ash, all that, it stops. So none of that can go forward. This is the actual way we can use private money to actually advance it more quickly so that this can get done. But we have to have that approval by the commission.
We approved this phase probably here, 2 years ago?
Probably close to 3 years ago now.
2 or 3 years ago, and it's still where it was in.
And then there's a perfect example where you have some generally light land, right? I mean, that's to your point. That is not, he has struggled in this weather patterns we've had in the last 2-3 years. It's a big deal for him.
What's the big stop with the commission? What is the commission saying? Why? I mean,
So
why?
the commission hasn't ruled yet. The public staff represents their concern, and I understand it. They've never faced a situation where there has been large upgrades that would be able to be funded. And the reason we're able to fund them is because we're selling to NCMC and we're federally jurisdictional. There's a mechanism for it. It's well, how all these gas plants around that aren't due get done around the state. So we're using a mechanism that's never been used before in solar in the southeast. And so it grabbed their attention. It's a big number. It is a big number. But we're fixing, we're rebuilding 63 miles of line. And I think their point, and we may get them on our side. We're still negotiating with them and talking to them. But I think their point is, well, that should be done through a long-term planning process that we would normally engage Duke and stakeholders and such. But unfortunately, private business doesn't work on those timetables, and so as a result, we're using a completely straightforward process that's been used many, many times before, but it's never been used for solar, and the dollar amount is large. So their worry is that, and one last thing, they have not traditionally looked at benefits. They look at cost. So there's not a cost-benefit analysis, it's a cost analysis. So if you look at things like employment in this region, tax base in this region, meeting the governor's carbon goals, meeting Duke's carbon goals, could you actually find, 10, 20, 30,000 acres to put solar on over the next 10 years in other parts of the state, which I can answer is going to be very, very difficult. And that's not mean it's all come to Scotland County. I don't want to give that impression, but there's certain places that are well suited for it. And the southeastern part of this state are very well suited. Upper PD of South Carolina could be well suited. Is that helpful? Yeah, so they do have a valid concern, but it is a little bit of a new paradigm for them that they're having to try to wrestle with. And I think in the end, I think it's important for us to know that there are benefits for Scotland County to be able to make decisions if they want to do 2, 3 more projects, whatever they decide to do.
Well, this is not considered a new project.
No, I'm just talking broadly, yeah. Or if you decide you want to site it in certain locations, you still have that. But if there's no infrastructure, it won't come.
Any more questions? If not, thank you, sir, for coming.
Thank you very much.
Be safe going on.
Thanks.
Item again.
Mr. Chairman, do we need to do an action on that now, since he needs that by the 12th, and we won't be meeting again?
Well, if there's going to be action by the 12th, we're going to have to do it tonight.
That's what we need to.
That's pretty obvious.
That's what, I think we need to do.
Well, I'm going to give you the county letter, or is that what you're asking?
Yes, I think the goal I would have, if you were willing to provide a letter that says something to the effect that, I kind of gave some outlines in that first material, that basically would say, solar has been a valuable asset for this region. We'd like to have the ability to invest. We have a project that we'll be bringing in, we've been working on since 2016 in the region. In the future, we would like the ability to do more solar, properly sited, et cetera. And at this point, our understanding is Duke has said that this region is completely off limits. And if the governor's goals are going to be to do, $4 or $5 billion more of solar investment, we want to have the infrastructure to do so.
The goals have to match.
Yeah, they do. And unfortunately, I think this public staff gets it that this region is important because, again, you have a competitive advantage in this that Wake County and Mecklenburg County don't have. There aren't that many things that are that big of a competitive advantage, but you have it. And I just think it would be a shame for. And then the other thing I would say is, this is a 4 to 6 year lead time thing. We've been working on this for a long time. this process has been going on for 2 years with Duke to get the connection going. We got another 4 years to go. If it just stops, then you're starting over, and I don't know when that happens. So,
Well, I'd like to move forward. I'm not sure how I want to word the motion.
But like I said, I felt like we need a little bit more discussion, Carol. I really
Do you
do.
feel better now about the
No, not
conversation?
necessarily. And, like I said before, as a commissioner, I would like to have more discussion on this. Now, whether it's tomorrow, or tonight, or whatever.
Since we have to do it by the 12th.
This is 12th or the 18th, I saw those days, which is it?
the 12th is the ideal date. I think it would still be useful to us to have it by the 18th, but I think the 12th would be where it would have the most impact if you're interested in participating.
Well, my motion is predicated on the fact that I think we should be proactive in positioning ourselves here in Scotland County for what the future can bring to us for development. And I think that this puts us in that position. And we're not in this alone. This is a regional effort. And he's already told us that Richmond and Columbus and
Blaine?
Bladen are, will stand to benefit from this too. And it is one of the things that we've talked about, that industrial economic development is regional. We're not a silo here in Scotland, and so I do support it. I'm not, my motion would be that I would make a motion that we support the recommendation of Frisian Holdings. I think that's pretty simple and straightforward.
Accept the motion, Mr. Chairman.
You all heard the motion, is there any more discussion?
I have the same concerns as Ms. Golson has about further development of solar farm. But I don't think this is anything about that. This is just the infrastructure of it, so.
This is about stuff that we've approved 3, 4, 5 years ago.
Yeah, it's just, like you said, either way, if they come in and build a gas plant, they still got to have this same.
Has nothing to do with future development, as I understand.
No, you still have all the controls that you would normally have,
Right.
but you're going to have the option to say yes, whereas you may not have that option. I mean,
I did not say I was against the idea. I asked for a discussion of it.
I understand. All right, we have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? All right, all in favor of the motion, let me know, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. All right. We're going to come with that motion to do something, we need to know how to compose where we're going to say it, is that right?
can I work with Jason? Maybe just give you, would it be helpful to you to just get some better clarity?
If this is acceptable to the board, since you know more about this than we do, could you email our clerk a copy of what needs to be
Happy
said?
to do so. Give you some ideas on how to.
If you would do that, then, if that's acceptable.
My guess is if we look what we just received, there may be a suggested verbiage in there.
There is, and I think you'll find that there's, the materials I gave you give you a lot more background that might help the commissioner understand a little more of the details.
That's that one you emailed it out.
Pardon?
There was a sample letter.
Yeah, that's what I thought. All right, any more discussion? All right, we will. All right, whatever, send whatever, by the, we received by the 12th, is that right?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Now, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good evening, members of the board. I want to take a few moments tonight and express gratitude and appreciation of Richmond Community College and our faculty, staff, and our board of trustees. I've got Dr. Walter Jackson here with me tonight representing the trustees, and Mr. Davis. I appreciate your service on that board as well. At your last meeting, you took a vote to approve DB develop and transfer the title for Covington Street School to Richmond Community College. And because of that action, the journey we've been on for about the last 4 to 5 years, the mission to seek full campus status for Scotland County, I'm happy to say, has been fully achieved. Based on the action you took, that was the last piece of the puzzle. And this past week, we were notified by the state board that the funding the General Assembly had recently approved in the most recent budget had met all the criteria, because that was the last thing we needed. They needed to see that we owned that piece of property. So funding, the recurring funding we've been seeking to now serve the 3-building campus we have for the folks of Scotland County is in place. And I wanted to take a few moments and sing the praises and express our gratitude and appreciation to this board for the investment and the faith and confidence you made in this long-term project. And it's taken a long time, but we're confident that it's going to pay off in huge dividends. I want to specifically thank Kevin Patterson for his leadership and guidance through both the Morgan Center project and the transfer and the renovations of Covington Street. Working with Dr. Hargrave and the school system, it's a very unique partnership that I think will be transformational for our county moving forward. The teamwork, collaboration has just been phenomenal. Everything that needed to happen took place, and I thank you, Kevin, for all your work in front of and behind the scenes. Mike McGurk on the facilities side was tremendous. I couldn't have found anybody easier to deal with. Mr. Johnson, thank you for your work behind the scenes on the legal front, saving tens of thousands of dollars, I imagine, taking care of all the deed work and all of the legalities, so it all flowed smoothly. None of this would have happened if we hadn't gotten the legislative approval, because last year we were approved by the state board, but we didn't get approved by the legislature. This year we did, so our thanks also go out to Representative Pierce and Senator McInnes. The good news is we're not going to stay still. We're already adding new programs and services, and you're going to see the benefits of this immediately. Starting in January, we've got a new short-term industrial mechanic program where we can meet the growing need for qualified, skilled industrial and mechanical technicians throughout the manufacturing plants of this region. And instead of asking them to go into a 2-year program, we're going to be able to crank them out well-trained, well-qualified in 10 to 12 weeks. We're going to be adding new staff. We're advertising right now for a cashier, receptionist, financial aid specialist, and the support staff that students would find on the main campus in Hamlet, they're going to be able to find right here. So we're living up to the promises we made to you when I came here years ago and laid out the vision of what this would look like and what would happen. I look forward to reporting back to you in the near future on the results and outcomes, but tonight I just wanted to report how grateful we are, and one of the big pluses is also going to be coming with a new sign that I think will clearly indicate not only who we are, but what we're going to be doing. So we're looking forward to the electronic sign being on site similar to what we have on the main campus. We're working with the city zoning on that right now. So we are very grateful and thankful, and we look forward to the long and successful partnership and building on this success in Scotland County for all the people here. I'll be glad to entertain any questions you've got, and I appreciate your time.
Any questions, Dr. Dennis?
public comment, Mr. Chairman. I enjoyed the open house,
Thank
but
you.
I want you to know that I heard from a lot of citizens here in Scotland County how much they enjoyed it. I knew what was in the building because I had the benefit of knowing that, but it was truly an eye-opening experience for a lot of the people that I associate with to go to that open house and to see what's available through the campus here in Scotland County. I would encourage you to maybe have one every year so that more and more people will attend that open house and learn about the services.
I appreciate that, Ms. McCall. We're going to have one every semester, actually. We're
Okay.
already having
That's
one in
even
the
better.
spring, so, and we're going to do that in conjunction with the, I think they call it the spring fling our students put on. So
Because
that'll all be
this is about- people don't know what they don't know. And so if we can continue to have that available to them, they will learn what a valuable resource we have here.
Thank you.
I just have a statement I want to make, Mr. Chairman. That is, so on up aboard with Dale, and we really just, the board we serve on, we talk about our unemployment situation right now. Over the past 20 years, we have the reputation of having the highest unemployment rate in the state. And Dale has really stepped up to the plate to do something about it, not just talk with the early college and working with our superintendent, Dr. Hargraves, having students ready for the workforce when they graduate high school, we not have to continue for another couple of years. And I just want everyone in this room to know that Dale has done that, and he's concerned about the image of our county, and I think we should be proud of what he has done for Scotland County over the past 2 years, and now that we have a full community college here, we know things are going to get better, and Dale, we thank you for that.
Thank you, Mr. Crawford. I appreciate it.
Dr. I would just say, I think very few great things get done without somebody having a vision of what it's supposed to look like at the end. And pretty good feeling that pretty much came through. So we thank you for your input and your vision and all the cooperation to make this happen.
Very kind. Thank you, Mr. Pierce.
While everybody here and for hearing me, I want to thank you for what you do with Scotland County. Ms. Jackson and I are going to put your feet to the fire to have a trustee meeting down here at least once a year.
We're going to go back to that. We did that for a while, and we ran out of space.
Okay.
We had to stop doing it because we didn't have any more space to do it, so we're going to get back to that.
I'm sure Ms. Jackson will object to that.
I promise you that's going to happen. We're already planning it for the spring.
All right, thank you.
Thank y'all for your time.
Thanks, sir.
All right. Board question. Ms. Parker.
Good evening, Board Chair and Board Commissioner meeting members. I just want to tell you, first of all, thank you for giving me this opportunity. The purpose of this is just to bring you up to speed on some changes that's going to be coming your way in 2020 as far as the Board of Elections Office. I wanted to start off with just kind of giving y'all a little bit of history of the Board of Elections. We're actually governed by the United States Constitution as well as the North Carolina Constitution and North Carolina General Statutes 163. We are funded by Scotland County. Me, as the director of the Board of Elections, I'm actually appointed by the executive director at the State Board of Elections. I do have an office of one staff member that is actually an employee of Scotland County. And Ms. Chastity and I actually work at the leisure of a 5-member board. Our 5-member board is actually, 4 of our members are actually appointed by the North Carolina State Board of Elections. Those 4 members are pulled from recommendations that come from both of our state political parties. No more than 2 of my board members can be of the same political party, and my 5th board member is actually appointed by the governor, and the 5th board member, since he's appointed by the governor, also chairs as our board chair. My board members actually serve in a 2-year term. They're appointed in the odd number of years. They have to be registered voters of our county. They have to be of good moral character. They cannot hold any elected offices. They cannot be a campaign manager for anyone running for office. They cannot be a treasurer, and they cannot be a near relative to anyone that will be running for office. As you can see on the slide, my current board, my chairman is Senator Bill Purcell, my secretary is Mr. Hal Culberson, and my other 3 members are Harriet Jackson, Diana Johnston, and Mr. William Buller. Excuse me. The responsibility of the Board of Elections is that we have to perform all of our duties in a nonpartisan and a non-political manner. We try to ensure that every citizen of Scotland County has a fair, safe, and open, honest, and professional conducted elections in our county. We have to function in total compliances with all federal and state laws, as well as rules, policies, and State Board of Elections numbered memos and directives. We have to keep all of our election data up to date. We do that by using 14 different programs that is provided through the State Board of Elections. We're required for every aspect of the elections, from candidate filing down to ordering ballots and supplies. We program our machines. We have to test all of our voting machines prior to elections. We train all of our precinct officials. We have to secure all of our polling places for election day. We have to work really close with our 5-member board members. We also have to work closely with both of our local political parties. And we have to carry out all the duties that we do, which is assigned to us by General Statutes 163-35B. As of November the 25th, here in Scotland County, we have a total of 20,753 registered voters. As you can see on the chart, I kind of broke that down. We have 54% of those registered voters are registered Democrats with 11,210. We have 28.3% of our registered voters are actually registered as unaffiliated. We have 3,569 of our registered voters as Republicans. We have 16 citizens that are registered with the Constitutional Party. We have 64 registered as Libertarians, and we have 5 registered with the Green Party. In 2020, we know that we will be having at least 3 elections in 2020. Our primary election is scheduled for March the 3rd. If there is a requirement for a second primary and there are no federal offices on that ballot, then our second primary would actually be April the 21st. If there are federal offices on the ballot, then that second primary will be pushed back to May the 12th. And our general election for 2020 is scheduled for November the 3rd. Now, when I put this PowerPoint presentation together, the U.S. House congressional maps were still in course, which, had us believing that there could actually be a possibility of 5 elections that we will have to hold in 2020. As of today, the 3-judge panel did rule that the congressional maps were approved today, and filing did start late this afternoon for those U.S. House congressional seats. So that made us happy in the election world, knowing that filing did start late this afternoon, and that will take that possibility of those other 2 elections out of our schedule. The next slide is actually going to show you all of the open offices that are going to be up for 2020. It gives you the office, it gives you what the filing fees are. The filing fees are actually based on 1% of the base salary for each of the offices. We did have filing start today at noon. We had 5 people that actually registered today. We had a 6th person that actually registered today, but unfortunately, we're going to have to go back to that person and let them know that some things have changed and they're going to have to go a different route. But we will have filing running all the way up through noon on December the 20th. If someone happens to come into the Board of Elections and file for office, and then later on they decide, hey, I've changed my mind, I don't want to do this, they can actually withdraw their notice of candidacy, but they will have to do that no later than 5 p.m. on December the 17th. If they come in prior to that 5 p.m. on December the 17th, at that point we can give them a full refund of their filing fee, and their name would not appear on the ballot. If they come in after that December 17th at 5 p.m., they cannot withdraw at that point. And even though, in their mind, they're not interested, unfortunately, their name would still be printed on the ballot. Changes that's coming our way in 2020 is starting January the 1st, the photo ID law will be going into effect. So every voter, regardless if they're going to be voting in person or if they're going to be voting by mail, they will be required to show a photo ID. Some other things coming our way is the Board of Elections did approve a resolution that has been sent to the State Board of Elections to combine and to eliminate some of our precincts. And I'll get to that in a few minutes. And also, we're looking at, in 2020, of buying some new voting equipment, and I'll get to that in just a second. I'm going to first cover the photo ID requirements. Anytime someone comes in starting in 2020 to register or to vote in person, they will be asked to show a photo ID. If they do not have a photo ID, under no circumstances will we turn any voter away. We will definitely offer that voter the opportunity to vote a provisional ballot, and then they will have up until the day before canvass to bring us a photo ID to make their provisional vote count. If they're voting by mail, they will still have to enclose a copy of a photo ID for their absentee by mail ballot to count. There are some exceptions to where someone will not have to show a photo ID. One of those objections or, exceptions would be that they have a religious objection to being photographed. There is a thing that has been recognized with the State Board of Elections, which is called a reasonable impediment. And a reasonable impediment means that there is a hardship that has come their way based on the requirement of showing a photo ID. Some of those reasonable impediments is that they could say that they had a lack of transportation, or they had a disability or an illness that prevented them from being able to get the required photo ID. It could be due to a family responsibility or a work schedule that prevented them from getting the ID. An ID has been stolen by chance, or maybe they've already went to the DMV and requested a photo ID and it just hasn't been received in the mail yet. Or they may even be going through a natural disaster. So there are some reasons that they could get by without showing a photo ID, but they will have to sign a paper saying, what their reasonable impediment is, and if that reasonable impediment can be shown that they signed that paper with a false statement, they can be charged with a Class I felony. Some acceptable photo IDs that will be accepted for the 2020 elections is going to be North Carolina driver's license and the photo ID that's issued through the DMV. It does not have to be what's out now, the real ID. It can just be the regular driver's license. It can actually be an expired driver's license. It just cannot be expired within 1 year. We can take a U.S. passport, we can take a military card. There are some federal recognized tribal cards that has been approved. There's some state tribal cards that has been approved. There's also some state, private, and community colleges IDs that have been approved. And there's been some employee, state, local, government IDs that have been approved as well. We can also actually take a out-of-state driver's license. And when I say out-of-state, for an example, if someone actually has moved here, let's just say from South Carolina, and they have registered and it's within a 90-day window, we can take that out-of-state driver's license. But it has to be within that 90-day window. In reference to senior citizens, if they have a driver's license that is expired, it does not matter how long that they have been expired, as long as it was valid on their 65th birthday, we will be able to take that as their photo ID. The goal of the Board of Elections is not to turn anyone away. We do have a photo ID machine in the Board of Elections, and we're going to issue a photo ID to anyone that does not have a photo ID. It is going to be free of charge. We're already issuing those now. It does not have to be someone that doesn't have an ID. So anyone in this room that already has a North Carolina driver's license or some form of photo ID, we will accept that. But if you want to come get a voter ID, we're going to give you that voter ID for free. All you have to do is come to the Board of Elections office. You will fill out a little form that gives us your name, your address, the last 4 digits of your social. We're going to take your picture and we're going to give you an ID that's going to be valid for 10 years. If you move from Scotland County to another county within the state, that North Carolina photo ID will be valid in another county within the state because that ID will be good for you for 10 years. If someone comes in our office and they're not a registered voter, but they want the photo ID, they can actually register in our office and get the ID all in the same day. There is a really small window that we cannot issue a photo ID, and that is One Stop Early Voting will be ending on a Saturday at 3 p.m. From 3 p.m. to the end of the election night, which is that Tuesday night at 7:30, that one small window there, we cannot issue IDs. But if it's not during that little 3-4 day period there, we can issue IDs. So if someone came to the One Stop Early Voting site to vote and they don't have the required ID that they need, they can just go out the door, walk around the building, come to the Board of Elections office, fill out a form, we're going to take their picture, we're going to give them the ID they need, and they can go right back to One Stop and cast their extra ballot. On that screen, I think that if you'll go back just one, that's just a picture showing you what the photo ID will look like. There's a barcode on the back that we can scan, and it'll give us, all of your information, like your voter registration number, that kind of thing. If someone does come to the Board of Elections, all they got to do is, like I said, provide their name, their date of birth, their address, the last 4 digits of their social. We'll verify that they're a registered voter. If not, we'll let them register and we'll give them the ID all in that same day. Now I'm going to go into our request as far as trying to combine some precincts. If you will look at the screen that's up, the chart that's on the top gives you a breakdown of our 10 precincts as they stand right now with the voter registration totals by precinct. If you will look at the chart at the bottom, that's our recommendations to the State Board of Elections. We are trying to go from 10 voting precincts down to 7 voting precincts. And what that does is it will actually put our precincts more in line with the number of registered voters that we have in each precinct. The State Board of Elections will be meeting this week, so we should know by the end of the week if this will be approved. Anyone that has already filed their notice of candidacy, we kind of discussed this with them, and we let them know as soon as the State Board, lets us know their stance and their approval, that we will be contacting them and letting them know about the precinct changes. With these precinct changes, what would happen is we would have to hire less precinct officials. And when we go in to buy new voting equipment, you're going to have to buy less voting equipment. So just a rough number off the top, it would save the county roughly just at the beginning a little over $33,000, just based on less precinct officials and less equipment that has to be purchased. The next slide is actually showing you a map of how all 10 precincts are as of right now and how they're laid out. The next screen will show you what it would look like once our request to the State Board has been approved. The next one actually at the top shows you where 1 and 6 is located now. And with our request to the State Board, the map at the bottom would show you where 1 and 6 has already been combined. So you will see, you just took those two and you kind of put those two together. The next screen shows you that we're asking to combine precincts 2 and 5. So the top picture shows you how 2 and 5 is laid out now, and the bottom picture shows you after 2 and 5 is combined, it would still be just known as precinct 2, and that picture shows you the new layout of 2 and 5 together. The next slide shows that we are trying to merge precinct 8 and precinct 9. The picture over on the left shows you 8 and 9 as they are now. The picture on the right will show you 8 and 9 as they've put together, and once they're merged together, they will be given a new number, and it will be precinct 6. And the reason for that is because we're trying to keep all of our precincts in line as far as numbers. And then that slide is just basically showing you that since we're trying to keep all of our numbers in sequence, that's precinct 10, which is Gibson, and we would just be changing the name or the number from 10 to 5. Going into the voting equipment, as of right now, Scotland County uses the M100 tabulator, and we use the 88 AutoMark. We currently have 18 M100s, and we have 11 88 AutoMarks. The AutoMark is an ADA device that we are required by the State Board of Elections to put in every polling place, and it's basically for the disabled. You want to give anyone that has a disability the same right and the same feel to be able to go into a voting place and be able to vote independently without any assistance, if that's what they choose to do. So that's what an ADA machine is. The machines that we currently have was purchased back in 2006, and our goal is to start replacing these in 2020. There are some steps that has to be followed before any county can actually replace any voting equipment. To replace voting equipment, it is actually the decision of the county commissioners board, and that decision is basically supposed to be based off of a recommendation from the Board of Elections. Before any equipment can be purchased, we do have to go through at least 2 demonstrations of certified vendors that the state board has certified. Then we have to make a recommendation to this board, and then we have to make a recommendation to the State Board of Elections, wait for their approval, and then we would bring a final recommendation back to this board. We will be having 2 vendors to come to Scotland County for us to look at their equipment. One of the requirements by the State Board of Elections is that when you're looking at the vendors, you can't buy like tabulators from one vendor and an ADA machine from another vendor. So when you're looking at the demonstrations, you have to purchase all of the voting equipment from one vendor. We do have ES&S scheduled to come in on January the 28th over at the Scotland County Annex Conference Room. They will be there at 10 o'clock. And then we've got Clear Ballot, Clear Vote is scheduled to be there on the same day, January the 28th at 2 p.m. I would invite each and every one of you to please come by, watch the presentations, watch the demonstrations. They will have, sample stuff there that you can actually, play with the machines. You can get a feel of the machines of what's out on the market. I will actually have in the room the machines that we have now, so you can look at what we have now versus, what we are looking to maybe be going to. So if you will please mark your calendars for January the 28th at 10 and 2.
You said something on that deal, please.
I will. And that's basically all I have. I just want to tell you thank you so much for your time. And if anyone has any questions, I'll gladly answer anything that I can.
Anyone have any questions for Dale?
I would like to say that I personally thank you so much for what you've done for me all these years. I run and you're convenient and helped me with my mistakes. You corrected, you were nice and kind, and I feel fortunate to have such a good staff. So thank you so much for what you've done to us.
My question is on the precinct 1 and East Library combination. So
Yes.
they voted at the annex, right?
That's right.
But go back to like this last municipal when East Library had their own, so they would still, East Library will come to the annex to vote for their.
That's correct. And it's really no different than like our one stop. Because, during one stop, we have all of the individual ballots, so they would just come there and we would just have an East Library kind of thing.
It's not something you gotta change back there.
That's right.
So you said with absentee ballot, you still have to send your ID with the ballot, right?
That's right.
Oh,
And when
copy.
someone
But it's
requests,
costly.
when someone requests it, we will definitely throw all the information in there that they need.
Okay.
And, you know, based on the way the statutes are read, if, you know, if they need to come to the Board of Elections to make a copy of their photo ID, we will gladly let them do that later. The photo ID law is not to discourage someone from voting. And I will tell you that here in Scotland County, my ultimate goal would be to see 100% of voter turnout, which I doubt will I ever see in my lifetime. But anything that I can do to make sure that someone votes will definitely happen. I will be working at the beginning of the year with both of our local political parties. We're going to try to do like a photo ID drive with both parties to try to encourage anyone that don't have an ID, please come see us prior to the election and let's get you an ID. The whole process takes less than about 3 minutes, and that's us taking the picture, printing the picture, and handing you your ID.
And you said the primary was March,
March 3rd.
so we really, okay.
And we have no stop early voting starting in February.
A little different this time.
That's right. General statutes had originally taken out our Saturday and had moved us up to start on a Wednesday. Well, now they've moved us back to starting on a Thursday, and they added that last Saturday back in. It used to end at 1, and we now have to end at 3 on that last Saturday. So we'll have a really nice long 14 days of one stop early voting.
Any more questions for them? I would just like to echo what Ms. Katie said. I've known Dale for a number of years. I guess I worked for her as a chief judge for 2 or 3 voting cycles, and she has always been very, very kind to me and very efficient in her job and knowledgeable about her job. And I just like to say thank you.
I thank everybody for your time.
Thank you. All right. We'll call. Board.
At this time, there are no appointments.
We have something else before that, I think, Bob.
Board election.
Oh, I'm sorry. I looked at the board election and we're gone. All right. The request for the board of elections, we talked about it here.
Now, with this is the same request we had last month. With this, what I've talked with the chairman about is the actual request. Some parts of it do not fit in with our current pay plan, and we just need, HR needs some time to sit down and actually develop, modify the plan, their request, so it actually fits on the pay plan. We can do it without change. It's not the numbers, it's not the budget, but right now, part of the request, especially for the elections technician, we just don't have a position that's qualified on the grade that they're looking for. Part of it would actually probably be looking at creating a deputy elections director position to move her into, because I know talking with Dale, she knows how, she can run the office when Dale is not there, so keeping her as a technician 1 or moving her to a technician 2 is not the answer. Creating something that can do that, and we can bring you back something from that matches the pay plan in January to the board meeting, and it can still be made effective for the pay plan, for the pay period, so it's not an issue for, you know, they would not need to wait till July for a change in pay.
When would it be effective?
January 16th.
We can make it effective January 16th.
Okay.
Can you make it effective January?
Actually, we can make it effective whenever the board says it's effective.
Well, it would be effective with the pay period ending January 16th.
Yeah. Our normal modifications are, our pay plan runs from the 16th of the month to the 15th of the next month. So normally, we start on the 16th. But the board controls this pay plan, and this is a reclassification. So this is entirely up to you. So if you say you want it there, the preference is, because it's easier for the system to do it for a full month, would be the 16th of the month. If not, then do it on the 1st of the month. It really gets screwy if you want to do it on the third Thursday, or, you know, if you start breaking it up even further weeks.
So to do it vague with what I think Mr. Gibbs is saying, we have to do it vague December 16th, right? Is that what you're saying?
I'm sorry. That would be the easiest thing to do.
I think to get to what you were getting at for January 1st, we actually have to make it December 16th today. And, but you can still back it up.
Yes.
I mean,
This board can make it effective at any point in time because, you know, it's your pay plan. But we just need to make the request match the pay plan.
And we can do that without the actual change in the classification to assistant, to deputy.
That's why I would be requesting that we do it at January, so we can, because if we're going to do that, we need to make sure, we need to create the position, job title, make sure it's in our pay plan. It's,
The state personnel have to weigh in on this?
no, not on this one.
Okay, that's good. All right.
But we still have her internal position control that we have to go through. So the goal would be to bring you back a plan in January that would meet, that would fit our, which would fit the pay.
I think 16 was the schedule, original schedule date, but it's all the place.
The only comment I would make is I think the Board of Elections has worked up a proposal that they presented actually at our last board meeting. We did not, I don't think, maybe at the time, took the time to fully appreciate the work that had gone into it, both from the staff of the board as well as the board members. And I think it would be my intention whenever we get this plan in place is to make it effective as early in January as possible.
The effective date to be made is decided on by this board. So this board can make it effective at any point.
Can we make it retroactive?
We can.
You can make it effective at any point in time.
So we could wait till January to take action. And go ahead and direct you to draft the necessary procedures that you need from HR to make the change in classification.
Any other questions? I would just like to echo what we said, and the rest of the board and staff have done a tremendous job, and we appreciate it very, very much. As I alluded to, you've not seen our picture in the paper screwing up an election and having somebody else have to pay for it. So we just need to thank these two ladies for their diligence and what they do. Anything else? All right, then now you're if there's any appointments.
We don't have any appointments.
Okay. All right, Kevin.
Okay, going over this, hopefully, the first item, and we introduced this concept last month, but just talking about, currently transportation is under emergency management. That's because at some point in time in the past, Royland did not back away from the table fast enough, so he got it. What we're looking to do is actually transfer transportation under social services. It's commonly under social services. It's not there in every county, but there are a number. The area where it really, there's the two programs sync is in medical transportation, because if you want to have a reimbursed medical transportation paid by Medicaid, you basically need to have DSS has to approve the transportation before it happens. then it goes into the actual transportation department. Since transportation is not part of social services, they actually have to apply for reimbursement the same way that Joe's taxi would do it. If we're able to, if we move them into social services, they would actually become part of social services reimbursement procedures. So that would actually be streamlined and, made easier. There would be some time studies that we'd have to do up front, but once those are established, it would be an easier process. Now, this does not specifically apply to the red and blue lines, the SCATS routes, but those we continue to operate as is, but transportation would just be under social services for hiring authority versus answering directly to our emergency manual. Now, this is one, because social services is under Office of State Human Resources, before they can get position control authorized, the board would have to approve transfer of positions. Once that's done, we can make formal application to the state to get position titles. So what we would do is actually ask that the board look to make this effective January 1. So depending on approval from Office of State Human Resources. Now with this, again, this will impact primarily Medicaid, medical transportation. The DOT grants that we have will still operate pretty much as they currently are. Transportation would keep its current office, the staff would not change. There is, there's no change in personnel other than the lines of the organization.
You don't need action from us.
And we need approval from you before we can apply to Office of State Personnel to get the positions transferred.
Well, I'll make that motion that we apply to the Office of State Human Resources, State Personnel, in order to implement this change.
Second. Motion and a second, any more discussion? All in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign.
Next item, again, this is, I think this is, everything else is an update. Register of Deeds, the asbestos remediation has been complete in Covington Street. We are currently have the electricians are in there doing demolition. Mike McGurk met with the engineer and the contractor today to look at some discoveries and minor modifications that would come out of it. And there are discoveries when you're demoing parts of an old building because we do not have plans for this building. They're not significant to the scope of the work, but so that is still in process. We did have, I've had a number of conversations, some with commissioners, some not, but one did come up on the possibility of changing procedures for the board, or just updating and reviewing some policies. One of the things that I'd also like to take some time and discuss with the board is the change in how I'd like to proceed with the budget process going forward. Of course, the big thing, we're legally obligated to create an annual budget, and that's the only legal budget you can create is a one-year budget. But the goal is to actually start doing a two-year planning budget. So we actually already we're building a longer-term vision moving forward. And I'd just like to sit down and have some conversation with the board on this process, as well as what we'd like, what we may as far as board engagement over the remaining months during this process. And for that, we'd probably look to have that as a separate work session in January, probably towards the end of the month, if that would be convenient for you. Not asking for a date or anything at this point in time, just looking to introduce that concept. And would probably look to develop a date in January for the board to accept.
So that would be a third.
Yes, sir. That would be a third meeting.
Make sure I was here.
And going to the Board of Elections in January would not be a meeting of the board, but you are all recommended to attend. But yes, January is going to be, might be a very busy month.
You want to get any action on any of that?
No, sir. The other item that we're working on, of course, is the communication tower. And other than right now, a tree is missing, and unless you walk out there, you'll see a lot of paint on the ground. It doesn't look like a whole lot else is happening. But actually, next week, the tower company is supposed to be, should be on site and boring the pylons for the foundation, which means we are going to have a very big mess back there. And the tower, we've talked about the possibility of it being delivered first part of December. That's actually just been postponed to have delivery time closer to when the pylons will be cured out. It'll take 20 to 30 days after the concrete is poured for it to cure. So the decision was made not to have it just sitting on the ground for 30 days. But, so the tower erection should begin again in the middle of January, but we are still looking for the complete construction to be happening, to be finished by the end of February and then radio cutovers before the end of March. And that's all I have.
Any questions, Kevin, anybody? Okay. If not, then Ms. Betty, you got any comments or anything?
No, sir, just recognize again the Boy Scouts for being here.
Tim? Tim? Carol? Yeah, I'd like to thank everyone for being here and for patience and a little lengthy meeting, but we appreciate it again. We appreciate the scouts being here and we can help you any way else. Entertain a motion to
Closed session.
Go ahead and get it closed out.
all right, now get ready to go to closed session, pursuant to North Carolina General Statute 142-10-11A3, to consult with an attorney employed or retained by the public body or